Hi. So as I was thinking about the content for the class this week, I was thinking about this bumper sticker that I saw long ago. Maybe you've seen this. It says, "My karma ran over my dogma." Ever see that? My karma ran over my dogma. I think it's just a joke, like karma. Sounds like car, right? Dogma sounds starts with dog, right? Um, But I was thinking about it, and it's like if karma means something like, given all the choices that I've made, this is my fate, like this, right? You can change it, of course, right? You start doing different things. Um, given the choices I made, this is my fate. And then if dogma means, well, a set of rigid beliefs, then it does seem like the case that, you know, given the choices that you've made, right? Your fixed, rigid beliefs are inevitably going to get run over. So I don't know. Maybe if you think about anything long enough, it becomes profound. I don't know. uh, my name is Dr. Asatar Bear, and I do this class every week um, live on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. Um, this method of meditation is called heart rhythm meditation. Comes from Sufism, the Sufism of Hazrat Inayat Khan and Pir Vilayat Inayat Khan. Um, I learned it from Pir Vilayat and from my father and stepmother, who teach this at the Institute for Applied Meditation, where I served as the executive director for some years. So tonight I want to talk about the seven chakras, and this is a topic or a system that seems like it always has a lot of details and there's always a lot of confusion. I get a lot of questions about this topic, so uh, I want to talk about this, but also try to give an experience of it, right? Because this is what meditation is, right? Meditation is, or it shouldn't be, just about ideas, right? It should be about experiences. I mean, that's the difference, I think, between meditation and philosophy, right? Philosophy, it can just be about the ideas, but meditation, it's kind of like being a chef, right? If all you ever do is think about food, talk about food, but you never eat food, you're probably not going to be a very good chef, right? So that's the point, right? We always want to be experiencing the thing that we're thinking about, talking about, etc. Okay, so the chakra, the idea that there's chakras, what does this mean, right? This is the energetic system of the body. So just like the body has a skeletal system, has a muscular system, it has a nervous system, all these different systems in the body, right? There's also a system of energy. Uh, and what does that mean, right? What is energy? Um, well, I mean, you're going to have to kind of go with me a little bit here, right? Like energy is that which powers your body, mind, and spirit, uh, and is also the result of the things that you do, the impressions that that have you've taken on over your life, the things that you've experienced. Uh, so the chakras, these energetic centers, bear the imprint both of our soul or spirit, right? The qualities, the pure qualities that we come into life with, but they also bear the marks of the things that we've done, the choices that we've made, the things that we've experienced, the things that have happened to us, right? So it's both a something which has a kind of pure connection to our timeless infinite nature, and also something that is affected by our journey through life. So it's something that bears some examination, right? Because it could be that things which have held you back, that have hung you up, um, and because we all have these things, right? The things that we have had trouble accepting, that we haven't integrated into ourselves, right? It's often the case that these things, a little bit of work, focused work on that area, can have a huge impact, right? It can change a lot of things about yourself, right? So that's the point of getting a little bit more detailed about this. All right. So I want to just say, right, heart rhythm meditation has a particular view of the chakra system. Might be a little bit different than some of the other things that you've that you've studied or that you know or have heard or whatever. Um, and that's because there's different perspectives about spirituality, just like there is about everything. Um, but there's also a lot of commonality about when it comes to spirituality, because the things that we're talking about are real things that a lot of people have experienced. Like everyone might experience love differently, but it's clear there is such a thing as love, right? I mean, like it might be hard for us to define, or we can't measure it scientifically or whatever, but still, it's a real thing, right? And anyone who's experienced it knows it's a very real thing, right? Um, you might describe it differently than I might describe it, or somebody else, or whatever, right? That doesn't make it less real. That just means it's a rich, complicated, complex area of life, and that means there's going to be some different perspectives about it. Okay, so heart rhythm meditation focuses on the heart chakra. Okay, the heart chakra is seen as the center of all centers. Okay, is the energetic center which contains the rest of them. Uh, so that's important, right? I mean, that's while we could focus on each center, right, and they have different qualities and whatever, as we'll get into it. We want to just have this philosophical understanding. Okay, it's all held within the heart center. Okay, that's the master chakra, if you will. All right. Um, the heart connects your body, your mind, your emotions, your spirit. All right. And so that's a very important center. So a lot of what we do, heart rhythm meditation, the breath. If you've come to the class before, I focus a lot on this. A lot of what we do with that is really focused on that center, and focusing on the heart center is helps with the development of all the others. Uh, but like I said, sometimes it's good to get some real focused kind of work in. Okay, so if there's seven energetic centers and they're kind of in a line in the body, right? The heart is in the middle. Okay, that's the middle one. So there's three upper centers right above that, and then there's three lower centers. So let me talk about the lower ones first. All right. The three upper ones are like, centers of subtle energy. They have to do with your connection to the world of spirit. Okay. Three lower centers have a lot more to do with your connection to life, right? On a practical level, or on in terms of, well, let's get into it and you'll see. All right. So we start at the bottom of this this set of energy centers, right? We have what's called the root chakra. Okay, so the root chakra is sometimes it's called like the seat of your being, right? Because that's actually where it is, right? I mean, like if you're sitting, okay, and you are, there's a spot that is like, right between the genitals and the anus, right? Um, the taint, sometimes called, right? Um, this is like the closest thing to where the root chakra is, right? So, um, okay, that's interesting, right? It's a kind of what you sit upon, right? Okay, so why does this matter? Well, this center is the accumulation of certain kind of quality, right? And that quality is timelessness, security, safety, home, right? So, okay, that's really something, right? A center that represents your place in the world on a kind of fundamental level, right? That's what the root chakra is. Now, why does this matter? So there's an energetic center in your body that represents these things. Well, a lot of us have some kind of wound that maybe from early life that affects our sense of just, do we have a place in the world, right? I'll give you an example from my own life. Um, I mean, this is not necessarily a special one. It's just the one I'm familiar with, right? Because it happened to me. So my parents got divorced when it was right before my fourth birthday, and they had a kind of particular way of dealing with this. They both spiritual people or whatever. They their way of dealing with it was like my mom took my brother, who was a year and a half old at the time, and my dad took me. That was that was the way they worked it out, right? So And this is one of my early memory. I have a handful of early memories, and one of my early memories is leaving my mom. Right. I don't even remember the look on her face. I just remember walking to the truck, the moving truck, when there was snow. I remember going through the snow. Age four. It's funny the things you remember, right? So this always gave me a kind of, I went from being a very exuberant, outgoing kid to becoming very, very withdrawn. Uh, like I didn't speak to anybody. And I became very shy. And, this is like a wound in my early life, right? But because, of course, right, like your mother, if you, this is, and, there's lots of different variations of this, right? But your connection to your mother is often your connection to a sense of place and a sense of, can I exist here in this world, right? On a deep level. So, having received that wound at an early age, I can just tell you, it affected me in a lot of different ways, right? And so, it's something I knew about, right? And as I'm going through a process of self development and so on, using meditation and also other things, right? I've done lots of other things, lots of therapy in there, and I'm not going to say that meditation is the only kind of self development. Not at all true, right? Um, it's a kind, so don't think that I'm putting down some other kind of self development. I'm not. Everyone has their own path in life, and I celebrate that. So I'm just here to share with you the set of tools, right? Um, so the point is, right, a lot of us carry some kind of wound, right? Something that affects our ability to feel safe in the world, to feel at home. Um, and I mean, I'm not trying to say I had it worse than anybody else, right? I mean, lots of people have far worse stories. That's not what this is about, right? It's just about getting clear on what this is, right? So one of the big things that because we live in this capitalist world, right, where pretty much everything costs money, right? So money itself becomes a kind of metaphor for this safety, for this home, right? For having a place. Because, I mean, let's face it, right? In this world, you can buy a place, right? I mean, you can buy property or you can buy a house, right? What is it? How does that affect you versus if you say you cannot, right? I mean, it's, I feel like a lot of times when people talk about wanting to be rich, a lot of times what they're really saying, like when I listen with that focus in mind, what they're really saying a lot of times is, I want to be safe. I want to feel secure, right? I want to know that whatever happens, right, that I'm safe. And money can sometimes give you that feeling. I mean, not for everybody, right? Because money brings other anxieties, right? Maybe somebody's going to come and take my money, right? Like that, right? So now, obviously, I'm not saying get more money to feel more secure in the world. I'm saying there's a connection between these things. Okay. So, spiritual practice, when we're talking about this, we tend to put that in a predominant position and say, what can we do, right? Given our external circumstances, what can we do spiritually within that, right? Does that mean you shouldn't try to change your external circumstances? No, of course not, right? You should. If they're not to your liking, try to change them. But maybe you guys go with me on this, right? First chakra is about your basic kind of existence, safety. You could even say on a spiritual level, your connection to the eternal, right? Because what does it mean to be at home? What does that mean on a spiritual level, right? What is home? So that is something that's very much worth thinking about. All right. Now we have a certain way of connecting to these centers, right? We can do it through meditation. We can do it by focusing on that particular center. Um, that's very powerful. We can use the colors of the chakra. We can visualize those colors. We can feel them within our own bodies. Okay, the color of the root chakra, it's a kind of deep red, right? Um, And like, how does one know this, right? I mean, you know this by experiencing the energy of that center, right? But so I'm sort of shortcutting that, right? I'm just telling you. Um, Now we can also work with these centers by sound practices, right? And this is a very powerful method because, and I'm talking about sounds that you make yourself, okay? Anytime we make a sound with our voice, it vibrates, right? It vibrates because of our vocal cords, right? Our vocal cords are actually, producing these vibrations, and that's what those vibrations then carry out into the air, and that's how it works, right? But you can't vibrate one part of your body in your vocal cords without having other effects, right? I mean, that's how vibration works, right? Like something's vibrating, you put it on the table, and then the table is vibrating as well, right? So we can use that, right? We can use the self-created vibration and try to direct it using our concentration, using our mind, and using certain sounds that have been shown to work, right? So a lot of these, Sufism has a body of different practices. And these are called wazaif, or the singular is wazifa, and they are sounds, phrases, or names of God. All right. So one that's very powerful for the root chakra is Qadr. Okay, Qadr is an attribute. It's one of these 99 names of God that come from Islamic tradition, and the Sufis have interpreted that and made it an experiential practice. Right. Um, so you say this word, right? And by the way, the word itself, Qadr, it means divine power. Right. So when you think about just this, the seat of your being, right? There's a certain power in that, right? Occupying your seat, whatever it is, right? Your position, your place in the world, right? On an inner level, right? Where no one can take that from you. Can someone take away your money? Can they take away your house? Yes, right? Anything external, somebody can take away. But that feeling on an inner level, I'm here, right? This is me. Here is where I sit, right? No one can take that away, okay? So it's worth developing, right? So the structure of the wazifa practice is to invoke the quality, okay? So it's a quality of God that we're dealing with. That means an infinite, timeless, perfect quality. And then we invoke it by adding Ya to it, okay? So it's Ya Kader, right? Which means I call upon this quality. It means something like, oh, infinite power, like that, right? And the way that you say it in terms of a practice is you want to make the sound like deep, and you want to just focus on when you're doing it. Focus on the vibration and try to just mentally, right, using your imagination, but also being alert to what's actually happening in your body. You try to bring that sound down deep. Try to actually feel it in that area that I mentioned, right? The seat of your, you know, physical body. Okay. So I'm going to do this a couple of times. You do it with me, or listen, whatever you like. All right. And try to get into the meditation as much as you can, right? This is part of it. Okay. We're not doing breathing practice right now. We're doing sound practice. So let's give this a try. All right. Yakadu, 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 yakadu. Yakadu, yakadu. So in the Sufi terminology, the spoken prayer or recitation is called zikr, or sometimes it's pronounced dhikr. The Indian pronunciation is zikr. And then the word for silent prayer uh, is fikr. So a lot of times the sound, the saying of the sound, is followed by a period of silence where you just sit with the vibration and you say that sound to yourself just silently, internally, right? So perhaps you get a little bit of a flavor for that sound. Maybe it speaks to you, I don't know, right? But get a sense of what this is trying to invoke, right? The power of I'm here. This is my place. Okay. Now, the when we work with these chakras, we want it to be strong and healthy, right? And what we recognize can happen is that a center can be distorted, right? It can be, you know, too weak. That's one thing that can happen, or it can be strong, but it's not clear. It's not. It's taking on a kind of distorted form, right? Um, so, for example, right, one of the distortions that you find in this root chakra is feeling anxiety, and what a common experience that is in the world that we've created, right? I mean, how many people experience that, right? So, we by tuning into that, a lot of times the fear kind of melts away, right? You get into that connection with the timeless within yourself. All right, let's talk about the next center. Okay, next center is sometimes called the sexual chakra. Right, this is focused on the genitals. It's not very far away from the first one, right? The root one we're talking about. It's a little bit higher, right? This one has a different color and a different vibe as well, right? So the color here is like a kind of a pink, a salmon color, right? And the the center is about pleasure. It's about proliferation. It's about saying yes to life, right? Now, again, it's very common to have some kind of wound with this, right? Um, Sexual abuse, obviously, right, creates a real wound in this center. Um, Sexual assault, rape. I mean, the this is a center that when it is functioning is all about creativity, right? And what we hear again and again from abuse survivors or rape survivors is that it really affects one's confidence. It really affects one's voice, one's ability to express oneself. Okay. And because these are all aspects of this second chakra or sexual chakra, the ability to just joyfully express, right? The pleasure that there is in that kind of expression, right? Of giving voice to that, right? I mean, think of the sounds that one makes during sex, right? I mean, like it's a kind of, like vocal expression, right? That one doesn't necessarily make that in other areas of life, right? Okay, so if you know if oh, my light has just turned off here for some reason. I don't know what that means, but it means I guess it means I'm going to try and turn on another light. I don't know if that's good. Okay, well, it is what it is. All right. I guess my light ran out of charge or something. Um, okay, so the first center has to do with our place in the world, right? Our relationship with money, to some extent. Our second one, right? Self-expression, creativity, sex, right? It relates to that as well. Um, the saying yes to life, that's very, very important, right? Um, and you can see how if that's not functional in you, if that's wounded, which again is very, very common, that it's going to create certain problems, right? That you might want to work on that directly, right? Um, So we have a another practice here, which allows one to work on that. And this is a different wazifa. This one is Yamuyi. All right. So the word is muyi, and this means something like, um, you know, divine, life-giving energy, right? The life giver, like that. So this is, an aspect of the divine being, and it's within us as well, right? Um, Everything that is within us. I mean, right? We're part of the one being. We are. So we think about these qualities. What makes the most sense to us is we think about them in human form, right? Because we're humans. We are familiar with human qualities, right? So what we're doing here is we're thinking about the ultimate version of that, right? The perfect version of that. All right. And the sound "mooey," right? It has that ooh sound in it, right? Ooey. It's got a very maybe you can feel the vibe of that, right? How it just sort of like whoosh, like this, right? And that's the kind of energy that we want to tap into to awaken, to purify, to heal the sexual center. All right, so let's give that a try. Okay, so again, we're going to say "ya," right, and then we're going to draw out this sound and focus on the vibrations, right? Like if you listen to me do it, that's good. But of course, it's always better if you do it yourself, right? Because, you listen to another sound, you're going to get probably a little less from it than if you make it yourself, right? All right, let's try it out. Yamu. Yamu. All right, let's sit with that sound for a moment. It can be very powerful to tap into these centers and to just feel what that kind of energy is, right? So, on a physical level, we're talking about the sexual act, right? But that's not all there is to that energy, right? There's an energy of connection, there's an energy of excitement, of passion, of there's a certain kind of freedom that goes along with that, right? Um, and to not be in that feels like less. It feels like, we have a kind of basic desire, right? To experience not just the physical sex and release that comes along with that, right? Obviously, that's a very strong impulse in us, but to experience all the different aspects of that it brings up, um, the joy of connecting, of expressing, of that wildness, right? So, if that is like, okay, so like I said, every chakra can be weak or can be distorted. We want it to be strong and clear, right? So that's a kind of the goal, right? How can this be distorted? Well, the search for pleasure can very easily get distorted, right? I mean, if that's all you do with your life, right? I mean, the paradox of that is that it's not going to make you happy. Um, you're going to pick up addictions. I mean, that's one of the big distortions of this sexual center, right? You try to find pleasure in something that is ultimately not really going to deliver it, you know? Um, I mean, that's the whole problem with drugs, isn't it? I mean, um, you get into it usually because of an early positive experience, but a lot of times that becomes very ephemeral, right? A lot of times that positive experience goes away, and it doesn't, and then you end up taking a drug just to not feel horrible, right? To not feel the withdrawal. Um, so that's a very common distortion that has to do with this the sexual center. Okay. Um, Another one, of course, is just not is being like afraid of that kind of energy, right? Um, Now, this one, of course, is related to the teachings of our culture, right? Our culture really loves to control the sexuality, particularly of women, right? Um, and so, we have all kinds of, very confusing messages about this. I mean, to all of us, but I think especially to women, right? Because, um, you know, all right. Anyway, you guys get the idea, right? Um, okay, so the energy of the sexual chakra is like you say yes to life. Okay, so if we move on, right, and then think about what's the next one up. Okay, the next one up is right at the is right here. Okay, so here's the my rib cage. I don't know if you can see this, but this is the base of my rib cage right here. Okay, so right at the base of the rib cage is the solar plexus. Okay, I'm pressing on it right here. Okay, the sternum, um, and this is this is our third energy center. Okay, and this is the center that has to do with. So if the second one is saying yes, the third one is saying no. Right. So the solar plexus is a center of willpower, of discipline, of boundaries, right? Now, again, how many of us have good, healthy boundaries? I mean, how many of us say yes when we really should be saying no, right? Um, where we say yes to things because maybe other people want that from us, right? Or we think we should, or the society tells us to say yes, or some bullshit like that, right? Um, Again, saying yes when you should be saying no is a great way to mess yourself up, right? I mean, if it's a no, then you have to say no, right? I mean, that is respecting yourself. That's caring for yourself, right? Um, so this is we can see how this can easily be weak, right? It's weak when you don't you when you can't say no, or when you can't focus, right? Because I mean, this is the center of self mastery, of self discipline, of willpower, like I said, right? So, how do you demonstrate willpower? I mean, you say yes to something and you say no to everything else, right? So, like, what do you want to get in shape, right? Well, you got to say yes to exercise and you have to say no to a whole bunch of other things, right? You have to say no a lot if you want to get in shape, you know? Um, so, the ability to say no, and if you cannot do that, you're going to suffer, right? I mean, it's going to cause real problems. So we need to energize that, right? Um, Now, there's ways that it can be distorted as well, right? Because what I'm describing is a very fundamental power in a human being, right? And isn't it interesting that it's so focused on like our core and also our abs, right? I mean, there's there's a correlation there, right? The strength of one's actual muscle, the abdominal muscles, right? This has something to do with the strength of the solar plexus as a chakra because everything is connected, right? So this one simple way to energize this center is actually to exercise the abdominal muscles, like believe it or not, right? And we do this to a certain extent whenever we're working with the full breath. Okay, so if you've been coming to the class, I emphasize this a lot, right? If you haven't been, if this is your first class, the full breath means you're really focusing on breathing all the way out, okay, squeezing all of the air out of our lungs on the exhalation, and then breathing all the way in. And this takes a lot of muscular control, okay? This requires us to control the abdominal muscles. When do we squeeze? When do we release? Right? And not just the abdominal muscles, but all of the muscles of the trunk and torso, right? So the intercostal muscles, right? These are the things that hold your ribs together, right? All this stuff. All of that comes into play when you breathe fully. Okay. So you're really energizing that solar plexus chakra by doing that. Also by holding the breath. So there are practices that we do that involve holding the breath, and you try to hold it down deep in your belly. You try to hold it right around the solar plexus, actually. Okay. Both of these things are very powerful ways to energize that center. Okay. So I've mentioned how it could be weak. Okay. Not having that willpower, not saying no, right? Being self-indulgent, right? Saying yes to things for just for yourself that you know you should be saying no to, right? Um, and I'm not judging you, all right? I'm not judging you. We all could have stronger willpower. That's the reality. No matter how strong your willpower is, it could be stronger. Um, so I'm not judging. I'm saying you look at it for yourself, right? You're the best judge, not me. Um, okay, so how can it be distorted, right? This is when the chakra is. It's not that weakness isn't the problem, right? The problem is that it's not clear. It's so with this chakra, it's like, oh, you're in touch with your power, but you use it to abuse others, right? Again, very common, you know. That's a distortion. Okay, the chakra is strong. It's just not. It's not connected to the truth in a kind of universal sense, right? It's used to manipulate, to gaslight, to abuse, right? That's not a clear. That's not pure, right? You know, we can tell because if you're using your inner power to have power over others, you're focusing on something which is temporary, right? You're focusing on power over others. I mean, how easily could that be taken away? I mean, just like somebody can always take your money away, right? Somebody can take somebody can take your power away. But if it's inner power, right? If it's power over, one can take that away. Um, and people respect that. You meet people and you can tell right away, are they in control of themselves, right? And people are always testing you, aren't they? They're always doing little digs, right? Little microaggressions, right? We do it without even thinking of it sometimes, right? And why? Because we want to know, right? We want to know, is this person going to flip out, because I've said some little thing, right? Or how do you know if somebody's going to flip out? Well, you got to test them, right? We all do this unconsciously. So we can tell, right? You can tell when someone is in control of themselves or not, right? And a lot of it has to do with the solar plexus. Okay. So the practice we have for the solar plexus is um, is called Yahuk. All right. Yahuk means divine truth. Very, very powerful practice. And the way that the sound is expressed is really part of that. Okay. It should sound like a kind of barking sound, right? It's a very clear, okay? It's uncompromising. It's like ringing a bell, okay? So it doesn't have any growl to it or any of that, right? It's not, we're not like holding or not restricting the throat or whatever. We're letting the sound come out super clear, okay? So it's like, yeah, huck, yeah, huck, yeah, huck, yeah, huck, right? You you feel that? Yeah, huck. Sounds a little bit like, a dog barking or, an animal kind of call or something like this, right? And you should feel it check you, right? Because it has that hard ending, right? That sound, right? How do you make that? Well, you have to deliver. It's calling on you to deliver the power, right, from your abdominal area, right, and then to express it in a very sharp, very uncompromising. This is not a time for compromise, right? This is a time for clarity, right? Like when you say no, good time to be clear, right? Say no so that there's no doubt about it, right? Hey, here's where my boundary is. That's not a mean thing. That's not an unfriendly thing. That's just how it is, right? Okay, so let's say this. Let's say this sounds. Practice the sound a little bit. Get a flavor for this. Okay. Yeah, hook. 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 You might have seen if you were watching me do it that I kind of wind up, right? And I go like this, right? Because, right, it's like you expelling this sound, all right? Sound of truth. And it's very important that it be your truth, right? You can't, if somebody else tells you, oh, this is what the boundary should be or whatever, it's not coming from you, right? Um, it's coming from outside. These things have power when they come from within, right? So you are the one who decides what the boundary is, right? You are the one who decides what you say yes to and what you say no to. Okay. So if the first chakra is very connected to your parents, but especially to your mother, right? The third chakra is much more often, I know this is a little bit gendered here, right? But it's much more often connected to your father, right? Because that's a kind of, that's it's been gendered by thousands of years of history or whatever. I'm going to lay aside the issue of whether that's biologically determined. I don't know, right? And it doesn't really matter, right? It's that seems to be the product of our social development, right? So it's not some kind of intrinsically male or female thing, right? But these are the qualities that have been kind of socialized so that we see them as masculine or feminine, right? There's lots of women out there who have this strength and willpower very well developed, right? And in some cases far more than men, right? So it's not about like the biological gender or whatever like that, right? It's more about the qualities which we have then associated with the gender, and that's where the sexism part of this comes in, right? So if you don't relate to that, that's okay. I don't really relate to it that much either, but it's part of a lot of spiritual teachings because of this is shorthand. It's not meant to be. It's not meant to be an offensive one, though. So I hope you feel me on that, right? Um, okay, so the if we move on, right, and we look at the heart chakra, right? Heart chakra again, philosophically, right, experientially, a heart chakra contains all the other chakras. All right. So by working on the heart, we work on all these others as well. But like I said, it can be very helpful to work on you can see how certain issues cluster, right? Um, like, if you have a real problem creating boundaries and saying no, well, the solar plexus would be a great thing for you to work on, right? Um, Now, I have to just say, right, that in the tradition of Sufism, like many spiritual traditions, um, this is a tradition of working with teacher to student, right? So, how do you how do you know like what you work on about yourself, right? I mean, like all of us would, oh my God, I need so much work. It's like what, where do I begin? Um, that is the traditional role of the teacher, right? The teacher listens to the student, sits with the student, takes in the vibe, gets a sense, right? Energetically, but on every level of what does the student most need right now? And then how can I help you to focus your practice on that, right? So you don't have a teacher, right? If you're in a position of having to diagnose yourself, okay, that's a little bit more difficult. I am here to help if if you'd like to have that relationship with me, um, then reach out to me. I can, I've taught a lot of students, but I'm just saying this is the classic kind of spiritual method. I'm departing from that a little bit by just broadcasting this stuff, right? Normally, this stuff would be kept secret until, and only given to the student that needs it, right? Um, because again, the point is not to develop some beautiful philosophy, it is to experience, right? It is to give us the tools that we need on our journey at this particular time, right? There is such a thing as having too many tools, right? You want the one that you need right now. Um, okay, so the um, the sound that I want to make for the heart center to develop and invoke this quality is uh, Ya Rahman, right? Rahman. So again, this is one of the attributes of God. It comes from Islam, and this one is familiar because this is like there's a the beginning of each surah of the Quran begins with mentioning this, right? And it's usually translated as the merciful, right? So it means divine mercy, divine forgiveness, um, and this is a quality of the heart, right? Um, your heart can forgive. Our heart can say, you've done me wrong, but I forgive you. I know I've done wrong myself. Um, your heart is able to put yourself in the shoes of somebody else, to empathize with somebody else, to connect with somebody else, to say, that could be me very easily, right? Had things been just a little bit different, that this person is feeling a lot of the stuff that I feel, you know? I mean, yeah, they're in a different position, right? Okay, we're in different positions. I've been in lots of different positions in my life, right? Um, and so your heart is always connecting, right? Always empathizing, right? Now, there's an aspect to this that we sometimes don't apply to ourselves, right? Sometimes it's easy to forgive somebody else, hard to forgive ourselves. So we want to tune into that, right? So let's try this out, right? Let's get a sense of this practice. Again, the word is Rahman, Rahman. All right. So we're going to say it with that vibe, right? We're going to say it with a kind of energy of what it means, right? We're going to try to produce that sound so that it's suggestive of the meaning. All right. Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahman. And by saying that phrase, we are saying, O divine mercy, O perfect forgiveness, I invoke that quality in myself. I want to go into that vibration, into that kind of energy. Hmm. Now, of course, whenever we're doing the sounds and then we do a period of silence, that's a good time to work with the breath. Okay, so if you've been coming to the class, right, I talk a lot about making the breath deep, making the breath slow, making the breath rhythmic, making the breath heart centered, making the breath full, right? Those are all of the aspects of optimal breathing, right? What we want to try to develop. So, when we're doing the sound, we're not doing a breathing practice, right? Your breath isn't going to be rhythmic when you're doing a sound because you're going to breathe in quickly and then make the sound, right? Your exhalation is naturally going to be longer, probably a lot longer. I mean, it depends on what the sound is, right? Like the yahuk one is a real short one. Um, but you make the drawn out kind of sound, then your breath is not going to be rhythmic necessarily, right? So because you're not doing breathing practice right there, right? Your breath isn't rhythmic when you're speaking either, right? Because the part that you're speaking is exhalation, right? And then you grab a breath when you can. Okay. So, but when you do the silent recitation part, what's called the fikr in Sufism, then that's a good time to do your breathing again. Tune into your heartbeat, make your breath rhythmic, make your breath deep, all of that. All right. So, there's a lot of different layers to this practice. If you're not getting all of it, that's okay. Right. Um, okay. So, because we're running a little bit short on time, it took a little bit longer time to discuss all this than maybe I thought. I don't know if I'll be able to get to all seven of these chakras because it's it's taken me a little bit longer. So let me just talk about the upper chakras. Okay, um, the higher chakras. Okay, so the higher chakras are the throat chakra. Okay, which is can't really see my throat because I have this beard here, but it's your throat chakra is um, focused on your throat, um, and this is a center that has to do with your subtle connection and subtle communication with the world of spirit. All right, and throat chakra is a kind of brilliant green color. Um, the upper chakras have much cooler colors than the heart and the lower chakras. Okay. So within Sufism, the heart is seen as a golden sun. All right. That's its color. And this is one of the differences between the Sufi chakra system and the Hindu one that a lot of people are familiar with. Because in the Hindu system, it's taught in yoga, the heart is green. The heart chakra is green. Um, I don't think that this is a real difference. Like I said, the throat chakra is green. So I think that, within the yoga tradition, they're kind of coming at it from a different angle. They're sort of viewing it from above or something, right? So, the Sufis have always been very clear, right? The heart is gold, right? It's not green. Um, we what do we say of somebody whose heart we really respect, right? You say that person's got a heart of gold, right? You don't say they got a heart of emerald, you know. um, so I don't know. That's just a anecdotal thing, right? But heart is gold. The throat chakra is green. So the throat chakra. What does it mean to feel connected to the world of spirit? To be in communication with the world of spirit. Right? Well, it's incredibly enlivening, right? I mean, spirit is the essence, right? Um, so, we need that connection because if it's just about us, life becomes rather banal. I mean, like, we're so familiar with our own limitations, our own, foibles. Like, is that all there is? Like me? I mean, um, isn't life more than that, right? So we get that sense of connection to the world of spirit through the throat chakra, right? And it has these two parts, right? It has the expression part, And it also has the perception part, right? The listening part. Okay. We move on to the higher centers. Um, the next one is the third eye. Right now, a lot of people know about this one um, because it's been depicted. A lot of like again a lot of Hindu art, sculpture and stuff depicts the third eye. So the third eye is associated with the pineal gland, um, and this is in your brain. Okay, so it's like if we took this point, right? Imagine that a line is going straight this way, and we took another one that was going this way. Right? The pineal gland is like right in the center of those two those two lines. So it's like right in the center of your head. So that's fascinating, right? But we depict it as here, right, on your forehead, and it's like there's a dot, right, a bindi, that is sometimes drawn, or a lot of cultures will do a spot here, right, in recognition. I think that there's something powerful about that spot, right? So, what is this? This is a center that has to do with subtle perception, right? It has to do with being able to perceive energy. Okay, um, it's a center that is associated with psychic power, with being able to, um, energy. Energy travels everywhere, right? So distance and time don't matter, right? Um, and so, you you tap into the power of this third eye, um, and you can get some incredible insights. Um, so that's the kind of energy that the third eye center has, right? It's a realm of subtle perception, um, but it's a certain kind of perception. Okay, it's a very focused kind of um, third eye is like a kind of a laser beam. That's it. That's its like very focused. All right. So we have practices that work with this, um, but that's the kind of what this is about. All right. Now the top of the chakra system is the crown chakra. This is the only chakra that is actually outside of your body. This is up here. All right. Um, and it's like, you will often see this depicted in spiritual or religious art, um, which often shows a halo, right? Um, what is that, right? Or some kind of a circle that comes around the head, right? Or a light that emanates from this. Um, well, that is the crown chakra, depicted in art. You know, um, so it's a real thing, right? It is the you the vibe that it has is this um, the connection to the world of spirit, right? That's what all the three upper centers are about on that level, right? So um, the spirit which contains all, right? Now, like I said, these centers have cooler colors. Okay, the throat chakra is green. The third eye is like um, a light blue. The crown chakra is white, right? White light. Um, so a lot of times in spiritual circles, people focus a lot on these upper chakras, um, because people are sort of fascinated with that, right? I want to be able to develop psychic powers. I want to be able to shoot laser beams from my eyes. I mean, that kind of thing, right? Um, and it's important, right? All of these faculties within a human being are all longing to be developed, right? Um, it's important, but one of the things that, at least the way kind of spiritual subcultures developed in the West, in the modern era or whatever, in the last 100 years, there's been a lot less focus on the first three centers, right? The first three centers, when they're developed, it's like life becomes possible, right? A decent life becomes possible. So, you know, don't overlook the development of those first three centers. I will talk more next week about the throat chakra and the third eye and the crown chakra and how these all relate to the heart, and we'll do some more practices and things related to that, because I like to try to keep this class to an hour. Um, all right, so guys, I want to say thank you to all my patrons who support this class. If you're interested in becoming a patron, check out my Patreon page. I put the link below. Um, all my patrons get access to a step-by-step course in Heart Rhythm Meditation, which takes you through the basics very comprehensively. I have a video for each sub step. Um, so if you're interested in that, check it out. And I will be back next week. If any questions come up, please feel free to get in touch with me. Um, Thank you for watching. Have a good night.